No one in the hall knew the truth yet. Not the groom, not the glowing bride in her silver dress, not the smiling guests taking photos, not even the wedding planner fixing the flowers for the 50th time. Only one person knew. The wife. Her name was Emily Carter, and she stood quietly at the back of the grand wedding hall, dressed in a plain navy blue gown that made her almost invisible. She held no invitation. She brought no gift. She carried no emotions on her face. Her expression was calm, too calm, like someone who had already cried months before tonight. But calm people are the most dangerous. The music played softly, the chandelier lit up the room like a scene from a romantic movie, and everyone kept talking about how perfect the couple looked. Perfect. If only they knew the truth. Emily watched the groom, Mark Benton, her husband of 9 years, walk proudly to the stage. He looked confident, charming, and way too sure of himself. He thought he had covered every lie, every excuse, every late-night meeting, every business trip, that was actually a cheap motel room with a woman standing beside him now. Her name was Sabrina Hale, the bride, the woman who believed she had won. But tonight, Emily stood like a quiet storm waiting to break. The hall smelled of lilies and expensive perfume. The air was warm. But Emily felt nothing except the slow burn under her ribs. Months of betrayal had hardened into something else. Something sharp. Something cold. Something calculating. Because Emily wasn't here to make a scene. She wasn't here to throw a drink or scream or beg or fight. She was here to finish the story. The story Mark thought he controlled. The officiant raised the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering today to celebrate the union of. A soft vibration buzzed in Emily's small purse. She reached inside and touched her phone. A single notification had popped up. System ready. Connected to hall screen. A tiny smile, barely visible, touched the corner of her mouth. Everything was in place. The big LED screen behind the couple showed a slideshow of their staged engagement photos. Smiling, laughing, pretending. All lies. All perfect for social media. Emily had watched that slideshow 10 times before sneaking the Betrayal file inside the system. Mark continued to grin at the guests as they whispered. He looks so happy. They make such a beautiful couple. Such a lovely beginning. Beginning. Emily almost laughed. This wasn't a beginning. This was the ending. The music lowered. The lights softened. Sabrina picked up the floral garland in her shaking hands. It was the moment every bride dreamed of, the moment she would place the garland on her groom, accepting him forever. Mark lifted his garland too. All cameras focused on them. Guests leaned forward. Phones rose to record. The hall fell into a sweet, expectant silence. And Emily stood perfectly still, like a hunter waiting for the exact second the trap closes. The officiant smiled. You may now exchange the garlands. Mark stepped forward. Sabrina stepped forward. And right as the garland reached half the distance, the screen behind them glitched. The slideshow froze. A sharp buzzing shot through the speakers. People looked around. The lights flickered once. Twice. Emily breathed out slowly. Showtime. On the screen, the couple's engagement picture disappeared, replaced by a black screen. Then, a voice. Familiar. Cold. Guilty. You know I can't stand her anymore. Emily is boring. She doesn't satisfy me. I just need to marry you and get this over with. She'll never know. Every guest froze. Sabrina's smile dropped instantly. Mark's face drained of blood. The hall fell into a dead, terrifying silence. Then the voice continued. Once the divorce papers go through, you and I will have everything. She's too stupid to see what's coming. Gasps exploded in the hall. People covered their mouths. Phones stopped recording. The garlands fell from their hands, hitting the floor with a soft thud that echoed louder than thunder. Emily stood in the back, eyes fixed on her husband. No, her ex-husband, watching panic spread across his face like spilled ink. Camera lights flashed. Guests whispered. The bride trembled. And Mark Benton finally understood. He wasn't the hunter tonight. He wasn't the winner. He wasn't the clever one. He was the fool. And Emily. She was the quiet architect of the entire disaster. As the guests turned their heads, they finally noticed her standing at the back. Calm. Still. Unbroken. She took one small step forward, just one, and the entire hall seemed to shake with the weight of her next move. Because tonight, the wedding wasn't going to happen. But the revenge absolutely would. From the outside, Emily and Mark looked like the kind of couple people envied. The kind who hosted warm backyard dinners, shared inside jokes, and smiled for photos that made strangers comment, "Perfect marriage." But perfection is sometimes just a clean cover placed over a rotting floor. Emily had learned that the hard way. Their home in Willow Creek was quiet, too quiet lately. The kind of quiet that doesn't comfort, it warns. Every sound, every late-night whisper from Mark, every unexpected vibration from his phone felt like a thread pulling loose from the life she thought she understood. Emily wasn't the type to imagine things. She wasn't paranoid. She wasn't insecure. But she wasn't blind either. One night, months before the wedding disaster, she stood at the kitchen sink drying a glass when Mark's phone lit up on the counter. The message preview showed only a few words. "I can't wait for you." Her hand had stopped mid-movement. The towel fell from her fingers. Her heart thumped once, hard, against her ribs, like someone knocking from the inside. Mark walked into the room, noticed her staring at the phone, and snatched it before she could blink. "Work stuff," he said. At that time, she wanted to believe him. But his eyes didn't match his voice. They were too defensive, too alert, too trained. And Emily understood something in that instant. Mark was afraid of being seen. Still, she said nothing. Not then. Not ever in the way he expected. Because Emily had already lived through heartbreak once, with her father walking out on her mother after a friendship turned into something else. She remembered her mother's silence, her slow collapse, the way she begged for explanations that never came. Emily promised herself she would never beg. So instead of following Mark's lies emotionally, she followed them logically, quietly, slowly, patiently. And this patience was what made the coming revenge so perfect. One evening, Mark left for another late meeting. Emily watched his car pull out of the driveway, then walked straight to the closet where he kept his gym bag. Inside the side pocket, she found something unexpected, something that confirmed her fear with the sharpness of broken glass. A perfume-scented note, folded twice, kissed in red lipstick. The handwriting said, "Saturday. Same place. Same room." Emily didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She simply sat on the edge of the bed and breathed. Slow, steady breaths. Not of shock, of preparation. Her mind didn't ask, "Why is he doing this to me?" Her mind asked, "How do I end this cleanly?" She was a woman who thought before she reacted. A woman who had built their entire household, supported Mark's business dreams, stood by him through failures and financial storms. She wasn't about to burn everything in a moment of emotional fire. Revenge, she believed, must be served with a cold hand. Not shaking. Not trembling. Not desperate. Cold. A few days later, Mark came home humming, smelling faintly of the same perfume from the note. He kissed her cheek casually, like a man who believed he still owned her heart. Emily smiled back, soft and ordinary. A smile he would remember later. A smile that hid more than he could imagine. "Long day?" she asked. "Very," he said. Too quickly. She made dinner, listened to him lie, nodded at the right moments, and never once gave him a reason to be suspicious. But that night, when he fell asleep with his phone locked under his pillow, Emily opened her laptop. Her fingers moved with certainty. She searched for something she'd read about months ago, something she never thought she'd need. A voice-activated recorder. Ultra small. Zero indicator light. Long battery life. Activates on whisper level sound. She placed the order. The recorder arrived 3 days later. Emily didn't hide it in his car or office. She hid it somewhere even more private. Somewhere he always felt safe enough to speak freely. His coat pocket. The coat he always took to those late-night meetings. The night she slipped it inside, her hands didn't shake. Her breath didn't quicken. Her eyes didn't water. She was not a broken wife. She was a quiet strategist. And boy, did Mark give her everything she needed. Voicemails. Laughs. Confessions. Plans for a future with the other woman. Mocking Emily's loyalty. Calling her slow. Calling her predictable. Saying he'd blindside her with divorce papers. And worst of all, describing the day he'd marry Sabrina like it was some victory over his boring old wife. Emily listened to all of it. Every word. Every whisper. Every lie. Each file was a nail in the coffin he built for himself. But what hit Emily the deepest was one line that he said with a cruel, confident laugh. She'll never see it coming. He was right. She hadn't seen it coming. But he would never see what was coming for him either. Not until the day she would choose. Not until the moment she would step out of the shadows. Not until the trap she built, slow, careful, perfect, closed around him at the wedding he thought would be the happiest day of his life. Because Emily wasn't planning to save the marriage. She was planning to end the illusion. And Mark had no idea he was living in the quiet before the storm. The first time Emily saw Sabrina in person, the world around her seemed to slow down, not out of jealousy, but clarity. Everything finally had a face. A shape. A reason. A target. It was a Saturday evening, cold enough that her breath fogged the air. Mark had rushed out of the house 2 hours earlier for another, urgent meeting. His shirt was ironed too perfectly. His cologne was stronger than usual. And he'd said, "Don't wait up," without looking into her eyes. Emily followed him. Not physically. Not like a jealous wife hiding behind trees. She followed him through the voice recorder that sat silently inside his coat pocket. Every sound he made went straight to her phone through the app she had paired it with. At first, the recording was only footsteps. A car door closing. The engine starting. Then music. Then her voice. Sabrina. High-pitched. Young. Smug. Did she suspect anything? Sabrina asked, laughing lightly. Mark chuckled, a sound Emily used to love. Emily, please. She thinks I'm working late every week. A small silence. Then Sabrina's voice again. Good. I can't wait to be your wife instead of your secret. Emily didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She simply sat in her living room listening to every word while the clock ticked behind her. If she had learned anything from her mother's broken past, it was that tears never fixed betrayal. Planning did. Later that night, Mark returned past midnight. His hair was messy in a way too familiar. His shirt had a faint mark on the collar, lipstick, possibly wiped quickly. He smelled of the same perfume from the note she found. Emily greeted him with a tired smile. You're home late, she whispered. Mark yawned dramatically. Yeah. Tough meeting. Long negotiations. Emily nodded softly, hiding the small shiver of anger that ran up her spine. Negotiations? Yes. He was negotiating his new life. And she was preparing the ending of it. 2 days later, Emily saw Sabrina for the first time. Not planned. Not expected. Not prepared. Emily was walking out of a small cafe holding a cup of hot chocolate when she heard a familiar laugh. The same laugh she'd heard in the recordings. She turned. Sabrina was standing near the parking lot, wearing a tight red dress and heels too high for daylight. She was younger, confident, the type who thought men leaving their wives was a compliment to her beauty. And next to her stood Mark. He didn't notice Emily. But Sabrina did. The moment Sabrina's eyes met Emily's, something shifted, like animals sensing danger. Sabrina froze for a second, then smiled politely, the way strangers do. Emily simply walked past them. Slow. Calm. She wasn't there to create drama. She wasn't there to scream in public. She wasn't there to confront or accuse. She was there to observe. Mark and Sabrina's conversation continued, but their bodies stiffened. They stood farther apart. Mark's voice lowered. He pretended to check his phone. Sabrina whispered, "Is that her?" Mark swallowed. "Yes." "Stay cool." Emily smiled faintly to herself. She wasn't planning to be cool. She was planning to be unforgettable. That night, Emily sat alone in the dark living room. She played the recorder files again, and again, and again. But then, a new recording began, one she hadn't heard yet. Mark's voice. "We just need to keep things quiet until the wedding. Once the divorce is finalized, we can go public." Emily's heart stopped for a moment. Wedding. She wasn't even served divorce papers yet. Mark wasn't even sleeping in a separate room. He wasn't even pretending to fight. He was just skipping ahead, preparing the next chapter of his life while she was still part of the last page. Sabrina's voice replied, "I don't want a small wedding, Mark. I want a big one. Something beautiful. Something her friends might see." Emily felt something sharp twist inside her. Not jealousy. Insult. Pure insult. She wasn't losing a husband. She was shedding a parasite. But she also understood something else. If they wanted a big wedding, she would give them a big wedding. Just not the one they imagined. The next morning, Emily cleaned the house as if nothing were wrong. She cooked breakfast, watered the plants, even complimented Mark's new tie. She played her role so perfectly that Mark felt even safer. And when a man feels safe, he gets sloppy. He left his laptop open on the dining table when he went to shower. Emily walked past it at first, then returned, then stood there for one long second. She didn't touch the keyboard. She didn't scroll. She didn't hack anything. She simply looked at the open folder on the screen titled, "Event Bookings, Hale Benton Wedding." Her throat tightened, but not from hurt. From certainty. It was real. It was happening. He had planned everything. The venue. The guest list. The date. Emily stepped back, breathing slowly. She didn't panic. She didn't confront him. Instead, she opened her own laptop. She typed, "Divorce lawyers near me." And then, "How to legally protect assets from cheating spouse." She sent documents. She made calls. She prepared everything quietly. By the time Mark walked out of the bathroom humming, the marriage papers were already shifting in Emily's favor. And Mark didn't know a thing. He kissed her forehead. She smiled back. But inside her mind, she whispered a promise. "You planned a new beginning. I'm planning your ending." For weeks, Emily lived inside the kind of silence that crushes a person from the inside. Not the silence of peace. The silence of a heart cracking slowly, painfully, but without sound. Every morning, she woke before Mark. She made coffee. She packed his lunch. She kissed his cheek lightly. She played the part of the loving wife so well that even the walls believed her. But inside her chest, a storm grew. A storm Mark never saw coming. One night in late November, it happened. Emily heard Mark on the phone again. His voice traveled down the hallway, low but excited. Romantic, almost boyish. A voice she hadn't heard directed at her in years. She walked closer. Each step felt heavier. Mark's words were soft but clear. "I just want our wedding to be perfect, babe." Emily froze mid-step. Our wedding. She felt the air leave her lungs, as if someone punched her ribs from the inside. Sabrina's muffled giggle followed. "Are you sure Emily won't surprise us? She looked at me weird last time." Mark laughed. A disgusting, confident laugh. "Emily, please. She's too naive to know what I'm planning." She still thinks I love her. That line. That line was the knife. Emily pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. Her vision blurred. Her throat tightened. She felt something inside her break. Not loudly, not violently, but the way dry leaves shatter under a boot. Quiet. Final. Hopeless. Mark continued talking. Once she signs the divorce papers, we'll be free. And the money. Don't worry, babe. I'll get what we need. Emily blinked. Money. Her heartbeat stopped for a second. Was this wedding about love? Or about what he could take from her before leaving? Suddenly, Emily's heartbreak became something else. Anger. Cold. Controlled. Pure. She walked back to the bedroom, sat on the floor, and let herself cry for exactly 2 minutes. No more. No less. 2 minutes to mourn the death of the woman she used to be. 2 minutes to bury the version of herself that trusted him. 2 minutes to accept the truth. Her husband was not a mistake. He was a warning. When the 2 minutes were over, Emily wiped her face, stood up, and inhaled slowly. The tears were done. The anger was ready. The next morning, Emily opened her laptop and played the new recordings the device captured from Mark's coat. She listened with a frozen face while the truth poured out through the speakers. Mark mocking her cooking. Mark making fun of her simplicity. Mark telling Sabrina he was just using her to keep the house stable until the wedding. Mark describing how he'd hide his money so Emily couldn't get any of it. And then, one file hit harder than the rest. It began with Sabrina's voice. But what if she finds out? What if she takes half? She's your legal wife, Mark. A short pause. A breath. A smirk in his voice. Not for long. I'll make sure she gets nothing. That was when Emily's stomach twisted. Her heartbreak turned into fire. He wasn't just cheating. He was planning to ruin her. He wanted her to walk away empty, humiliated, destroyed. Her hands shook, only once, before she clenched them into fists. She paused the audio, closed the laptop, stood up, and whispered, "No, Mark. You'll walk away with nothing." 3 days later, Emily walked into a lawyer's office downtown. She wore a clean white sweater. Her hair was tied back neatly. She looked calm, too calm for what she carried inside. The lawyer, Mr. Grant, studied her for a moment. "What can I help you with?" Emily placed the USB drive on the table. "My husband is planning to divorce me and hide assets. I want to file first." The lawyer listened to the recordings, his eyebrows slowly rising. "This is enough to take half of everything," he said. "And more." Emily nodded. "I want it all done quietly. He must not know." "Not yet." Mr. Grant leaned back. "You're calm about all this." Emily looked out the window. Calm wasn't the right word. She was past the point of emotions. She was focused. "He taught me how to be silent," she finally said. "Now I will teach him what silence can do." But even the strongest storms have moments of weakness. One evening, Emily was sorting old pictures, trying to decide which documents she needed for the divorce file, when she found an anniversary card from Mark. A simple card, with a messy drawing of a heart and the words, "Forever yours, M." For the first time in weeks, her chest ached. She sat on the floor holding the card, remembering the man she loved, the man she thought she married. The memories felt like ghosts, warm, but dead. And as she stared at the handwriting she once adored, she whispered to herself, "Why wasn't I enough?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. It wasn't fair. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't her failure. But heartbreak doesn't follow logic. For a moment, just one, she felt like shattered glass trying to hold itself together. Then, her phone buzzed. A new recording. Mark's voice again. "She's so easy to fool. I swear, sometimes I think she's grateful just to be ignored." Emily closed her eyes. Her heart hardened again. The ghosts disappeared. She stood up. She tore the anniversary card in half, then into pieces, then into dust. Her voice was steady when she whispered, "I was more than enough. You were the failure." And with that, the last piece of her old self fell away. Emily was no longer the wife in pain. She was the woman in control. And the trap she was building for Mark was almost ready. The morning Emily discovered the exact wedding date, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Certainty. Not happiness. Not relief. Certainty. Mark's laptop lay open on the table again, because men who believe they're winning become careless. A calendar entry glowed on the screen. Benton Hale Wedding Rehearsal, December 18th. Wedding Ceremony, December 22nd. 2 weeks away. Emily stood there, staring at the glowing dates, listening to the faint hum of the fridge behind her. She let the truth root itself deep inside her mind. He was going to marry Sabrina while still married to her. He was going to betray her publicly. He was going to humiliate her without hesitation. And she wasn't going to stop him. She was going to let him walk straight into the trap he built for himself. Emily spent the next days preparing everything. Carefully, quietly, efficiently. She gathered the recordings. She scanned the documents. She saved screenshots of messages. She collected years of financial statements. No emotion. No hesitation. Her lawyer often told her, "Most people in your place scream, fight, or panic." Emily always responded the same way. "I don't scream. I plan." But deep inside, she knew the truth. This wasn't just planning. This was survival. This was reclaiming her dignity piece by piece. This was the version of herself her mother had wished she could become. Strong, unshakable, unforgiving when necessary. One afternoon, Mark walked into the kitchen holding a white envelope. He didn't notice Emily standing behind him as he slid it into the drawer quickly. Too quickly. Suspiciously quickly. When he left the room, she opened the drawer. There it was. A fancy gold-bordered wedding invitation. Their wedding invitation, except she wasn't the bride. She read the names slowly, letting each letter carve a deeper scar inside her chest. Mark Benton and Sabrina Hale request the honor of your presence. Emily held the card for a long moment. It felt surreal, like reading an obituary for a marriage that wasn't even dead yet. A part of her wanted to crumble. Another part wanted to scream. Another part wanted to tear the invitation into shreds. But she didn't. Instead, she placed it back exactly where she found it. Because she needed Mark to believe she was clueless. She needed him to stay blind. She needed him to continue digging his own grave. The deeper the hole, the louder the fall. That night, Mark spoke at dinner with an excitement he had never shown toward Emily. He talked about work promotions, important clients, big celebrations coming up. Emily watched him silently, stirring her soup, each movement slow and controlled. "You seem happy lately," she said. Mark smiled, an honest smile, full of arrogance. "I guess things are going my way." Emily nodded. "Yes. They really are." He didn't hear the hidden message inside her voice. He was too focused on his perfect future, the one he thought no one could destroy. But Emily had already found the perfect weapon. The wedding venue had a 40-foot LED screen. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to confront him. She would let the truth speak for itself, loudly, publicly, painfully. She contacted the venue through an email account Mark didn't know she had. Under a false name, she requested technical details about the screen for a slideshow surprise gift. The tech manager responded instantly. "Yes, the screen can play scheduled videos. Files can be connected via USB, HDMI, or remote system link." Remote system link. Exactly what she needed. Her plan was no longer just good. It was flawless. One evening, Emily watched from her car as Mark and Sabrina entered a fancy restaurant. They walked hand in hand, laughing like two people who believed the world revolved around their secret love. Emily didn't go inside. She didn't take pictures. She didn't confront them. She simply sat in the dark car, listening to them through the recorder she had placed in Mark's jacket again that morning. Their voices filled her car like poison. Sabrina, I feel bad for her sometimes. Mark, don't. Emily has always been someone who stays quiet. She doesn't fight. That's why I married her. Sabrina. And that's why you're leaving her. Mark. Exactly. The wedding day will be a new beginning for us. Emily closed her eyes. She didn't cry. But something inside her clicked. A new beginning? He was right. There would be a new beginning. Just not the one he expected. 2 nights later, Mark left for another late meeting. 30 minutes after he drove off, Emily's phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Do you know what your husband is doing? Emily stared at it. Then another message came. He promised to leave you weeks ago. It's not fair to you. Emily replied calmly. Who is this? Silence. Then. Someone who thinks you deserve better. Emily didn't respond again. She didn't know who it was. Maybe an ex-friend of Sabrina's, maybe a guilty cousin, maybe someone with a conscience. But one thing became clear. People inside Mark's circle knew the truth. They just didn't know what Emily was capable of. The next morning, Emily walked into her lawyer's office again. The papers were ready. She signed. Her fingers didn't tremble. Her face didn't shift. Her heartbeat didn't speed up. She had officially filed for divorce, before Mark could, before he expected, before he even dreamed she'd take action. And the best part? She filed under grounds that would guarantee she got half of everything he owned. The assets he thought he could hide? Frozen. Protected. Untouchable. The lawyer looked impressed. You're handling this better than most, he said. Emily gathered her bag and stood. I'm not handling it, she answered calmly. I'm ending it. The week of the wedding arrived like a storm moving in slow motion. Outside, everything looked peaceful. Cold winter mornings, quiet streets, soft sunlight touching the edges of rooftops. But inside Emily's world, the air felt sharp, heavy, charged. It was the last week she would ever spend under the same roof as Mark. After this, everything would change. Mark became unexpectedly gentle that week. He woke up early and made coffee. He complimented her hair. He brought home flowers. Cheap ones, but still flowers. It was all fake. A performance. One last act before he betrayed her. And Emily watched him with a calm expression that hid everything. He didn't know she had already filed for divorce. He didn't know she already owned half of what he thought he could hide. He didn't know she had built a digital bomb ready to explode at his wedding. He thought he was winning. He had no idea the ground under his feet was cracking. On Wednesday, Emily received an unexpected call. Unknown number. She answered quietly. A familiar voice spoke. Hi, Emily. It's Sabrina. Emily didn't reply. She waited. Sabrina inhaled deeply. Listen. I just want you to know I didn't mean to steal Mark. But he loves me. I hope we can all move forward with dignity. Emily's fingers curled slowly around the phone. Dignity? This woman wanted dignity? Emily's heartbeat stayed silent and steady as she replied. I wish you both whatever you deserve. Sabrina exhaled softly, not understanding the hidden meaning. Thank you, Emily. I knew you were the mature one. Emily hung up without another word. She sat in silence afterward, the phone on her lap, feeling a strange mix of pity and cold satisfaction. Sabrina truly believed she was walking into a victory. But she was walking into the biggest humiliation of her life. And she didn't even see it. On Thursday morning, a small package arrived for Emily. No sender name. Inside was a USB drive. Nothing else. Emily plugged it into her laptop. Only one file was inside. A video. A secretly recorded video of Mark and Sabrina sitting in a car, laughing about her. Sabrina. She still lives in your house? That is so embarrassing. Poor woman. Mark. She'll be out soon. She won't even know what hit her. Sabrina. Promise me the wedding will be perfect. Mark. It will be. The only one missing will be Emily, and that's the best part. Emily leaned back in her chair. Her eyes didn't water. Her lips didn't shake. She simply added the new video to the collection of files she planned to reveal. Whoever sent it, whoever cared enough to expose them, didn't matter. Emily had become the quiet center of a web of secrets. People were watching. People were listening. And someone out there wanted her to win. That evening, Mark got dressed in a crisp black suit. Rehearsal dinner tonight, he said. Important clients will be there. Emily nodded. I hope it's everything you want. Mark smiled, thinking she meant it. He didn't notice the slight gleam in her eyes. He didn't notice the small device resting under the table, already connected to the wedding hall's screen system. He was too busy practicing his smile for the new life he thought he'd start soon. When Mark left for the rehearsal, Emily followed 10 minutes later, not to the hall, but to a parking lot nearby where she could hear everything through the recorder again. Mark's voice came through the app. Tomorrow, everything changes. I'll be a new man. Sabrina giggled. I can't believe she still hasn't figured it out. Mark. Emily. She's the last thing I worry about. She's too scared of confrontation. She'll probably just cry in a corner when the papers come. Emily closed her eyes. Cry in a corner? Not anymore. Not ever again. Emily returned home late. She walked through the living room quietly, as if the house itself were holding its breath. She took out the dress she would wear tomorrow, a simple navy blue gown. Nothing dramatic. Nothing bright. Something that made her invisible enough to watch everything clearly. She placed the USB with all the files inside her purse. She checked the remote connection to the giant wedding hall screen. A single notification glowed. Ready for playback. Her plan was perfect. But even then, Emily sat on the edge of the bed and allowed herself one final moment of human emotion. She whispered to herself, "You loved the wrong man. But now you'll leave him with nothing." No tears fell. Because she had cried everything out long ago. Now she was empty in the best way. Clear. Focused. Steady. A woman who had walked through heartbreak and come out sharper than steel. Mark woke up early the next day, humming happily as he dressed in his wedding suit. He didn't look at Emily once. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't thank her for breakfast. He was already living in tomorrow. Emily watched him fix his tie in the mirror. And for the first time in years, she felt nothing for him. No love. No hate. No jealousy. Nothing. He was simply a stranger wearing a suit. A stranger walking toward a trap. A stranger about to lose everything. When he walked out of the house, Emily whispered under her breath, "Goodbye, Mark. Your new beginning starts today. So does your ending." The wedding hall was decorated like a fairy tale that didn't know it was seconds away from turning into a nightmare. White orchids hung from every corner. Golden candles flickered softly. A red carpet stretched down the aisle like a path to paradise. Guests arrived dressed in bright colors, greeting each other warmly, unaware they were walking into the most unforgettable disaster of their lives. And in the middle of all the excitement, Emily stood near the back door, quiet, still, invisible. She wore her simple navy blue gown. Her hair was tied back neatly. Her face calm like a sea right before a storm. No one noticed her, not even Mark's relatives. Everyone assumed she was just another guest. Which was perfect. Mark entered the hall looking like a man who believed the world belonged to him. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, a bright smile, and the confidence of someone who thought he had planned his life flawlessly. People clapped. Cameras flashed. He waved like a celebrity. He didn't know that every step he took brought him closer to the end of that perfect world. When he looked around, he didn't notice Emily. He wasn't even thinking about her. His focus was on one person. Sabrina. She entered wearing a shimmering silver gown, smiling modestly, pretending to be graceful. Guests admired her. Friends whispered how beautiful she looked. Emily watched her walk down the aisle. She felt no jealousy, no pain, only cold expectation. The music softened. The officiant asked everyone to settle. Guests took their seats. Phones came out to record. Emily slowly reached inside her purse and touched her phone. A screen connection confirmation flashed, linked to main hall display. She wasn't going to press anything yet. She would wait for the perfect moment. Timing was everything. Mark smiled at Sabrina as he lifted his garland. Sabrina smiled back, glowing with confidence. The perfect couple. The perfect moment. They both stepped forward. Guests leaned in. Children hushed. The hall fell into a sweet, soft silence. Emily's finger hovered above the screen. Not yet. Not yet. Her heart didn't race. Her hands didn't shake. This wasn't revenge out of rage. This was revenge out of justice. The officiant nodded. You may now exchange the garlands. Mark lifted his arm higher. Sabrina raised hers. And right then, Emily tapped her screen. One. Single. Soft. Tap. The lights flickered. The music cut off. The slideshow of smiling engagement photos froze mid-frame. Guests murmured. Sabrina paused. Mark frowned. Then the giant LED screen behind them went completely black. For a full second, no one breathed. Then, a voice filled the entire hall. Mark's voice. Cold. Clear. Cruel. You know I can't stand her anymore. Emily is boring. She doesn't satisfy me. I just need to marry you and get this over with. She'll never know. The hall went silent. Dead silent. Then chaos exploded. People gasped. Some stood. Some dropped their phones. Others covered their mouths. Sabrina froze with her garland halfway lifted, her eyes wide, her face draining of color. Mark stumbled backward as if someone punched him. No, 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 turn it off, he shouted. But the video didn't stop. Emily had scheduled it. Automatic. Locked. Irreversible. The screen continued. Once the divorce papers go through, you and I will have everything. She's too stupid to see what's coming. Who played this? Mark yelled. Sabrina's mother stood up and screamed. Are you cheating on my daughter with your wife? More gasps. More whispers. Someone shouted. This is unbelievable. Another shouted. She deserves better than this trash. Mark turned bright red, then pale, then red again. He started sweating. And then the screen switched to the next recording. Sabrina's voice now. Don't worry, Mark. I want Emily to feel small. I want her to see us together. Guests shrieked, shocked at Sabrina's cruelty. Sabrina grabbed Mark's arm. Turn it off. But the screen kept going. Next recording, Mark again. Emily. She's weak. She never fights back. She'll walk away like a scared little girl. And finally, the last recording. The final nail. Sabrina's giggle echoed through the speakers. Do you think she'll cry when she finds out? Mark laughed cruelly. She won't find out until it's too late. The wedding will be perfect without her. The hall erupted. People started booing. Guests pointed fingers. The bride's family stormed toward Mark, furious. Sabrina backed away, shaking. Mark stood frozen, humiliated beyond repair. His perfect day. Destroyed. His perfect bride. Ashamed. His perfect plan. Gone. Chaos was loud. Voices shouting, chairs scraping, guests filming. But Emily's footsteps were soft and steady. Tap. 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 People turned as she moved through the aisle. Not with rage. Not with drama. With power. The kind of power that comes from truth. Mark saw her and his eyes widened in horror. "Emily, what are you doing here?" Emily stopped a few steps away. She looked at him, not with pain, not with love, but with complete, icy clarity. Her voice was calm when she spoke. "I came to watch the wedding you planned behind my back." Gasps. Whispers. Phones recording. Emily continued. "And I came to give you the gift you deserve." Sabrina stuttered. You ruined everything." Emily looked at her with a steady expression. "No. I revealed everything." Mark panicked. "What do you want from me?" Emily smiled softly. "Nothing. I already took what belonged to me." The room fell into confused silence. What do you mean?" Sabrina whispered. Emily turned to the crowd. Her voice cut clean through the chaos. "I filed for divorce last week. And I took half of everything he owns. Legally. Quietly. Completely." Mark's mouth dropped open. "What? That's not. You can't." "I can," Emily said firmly. "And I did." The guests erupted again. Mark staggered back, breathing heavily. His life was collapsing right in front of everyone. "And one more thing," Emily said. She stepped closer to him, so close he could hear every word. "You planned a new beginning," she whispered. Then she stepped back, raised her chin, and said loudly, "I planned your ending." Mark's legs wobbled. Sabrina burst into tears. Guests cheered. Someone clapped. Someone shouted, "Good for you." Another yelled, "She won." Emily turned and walked toward the exit. Calm. Steady. Victorious. Behind her, the wedding turned into complete chaos. And Mark Benton watched the only woman who ever loved him walk away, while everything he tried to steal fell apart in one unforgettable moment. The moment Emily stepped out of the chaotic wedding hall, the cold winter air wrapped around her like a quiet blanket. Behind her, screams still echoed, angry guests, crying relatives, a furious bride, and a groom who deserved every second of that storm. But Emily walked calmly toward the parking lot. Her heartbeat was steady. Her steps were slow and certain. Her face peaceful, almost relieved. Because the truth had been spoken. The lies had died. The ending she built had unfolded perfectly. For the first time in months. She breathed without pain. While Emily drove away, the disaster behind her grew worse. Sabrina sat on the stage, mascara streaming down her cheeks, shaking uncontrollably. Her mother was yelling at Mark, pointing a sharp finger in his face. "You humiliated my daughter in front of hundreds of people. You monster." Mark tried to speak, his voice cracking, stumbling, but no one wanted to hear him. A group of Sabrina's relatives surrounded him, shouting, "You used her. You played both women. You disgust us." The officiant shook his head and walked away. The wedding planner threw down the ceremony book in frustration. The guests whispered loudly, recording everything for social media. The once beautiful wedding had turned into a battlefield. And in the center of it stood Mark Benton, destroyed, sweating, panicked, frozen. Reality hit him in waves too strong for him to stand against. His bride hated him. Her family hated him. His own relatives were ashamed. And the woman he betrayed, Emily, had walked away with half of everything he owned. But the most terrifying part? He knew the whole world would know the truth by sunset. Everything was being filmed. Everything was being posted. Everything was being shared. The perfect image he worked so hard to build was gone. Forever. Hours after the disaster, Mark rushed home. He parked crookedly in the driveway, ran to the front door, and slammed inside. "Emily. Emily, please. We need to talk." But the house was quiet. Too quiet. He checked the living room. Empty. The bedroom. Empty. The kitchen. Empty. His hands shook as he opened drawers, looked behind doors, searched every corner like a man sinking in quicksand. "Emily!" he screamed again. Nothing. No footsteps. No soft voice. No presence. Just emptiness. Only then did he walk into the study, her study, and find a single envelope on the desk. His name written neatly on the front. He opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was one sentence written in calm, clean handwriting. "Your new beginning cost you everything." Underneath the note was a copy of the court document. Proof of divorce filing, Emily Carter versus Mark Benton. Signed. Stamped. Accepted. Mark dropped the envelope. His breath went ragged. His knees weakened. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was done. He was legally free. Free, but broke. Free, but ruined. Free, but alone. Everything he thought he controlled slipped through his fingers like dust. Meanwhile, Emily sat in a small rented apartment across town. The room was simple. One bed, one table, soft lighting, white curtains, but it felt peaceful. It felt clean. It felt like a place where nothing was fake. She brewed herself a cup of warm tea and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She wasn't joyful. She was just calm. Free. She placed her phone on the table. Notifications were exploding. Texts, calls, social media tags, screenshots of the wedding disaster going viral. She turned the phone face down and took a deep breath. For once, her life wasn't about crisis, secrets, or betrayal. It was hers. She whispered softly, "You're okay now." Because she was Darty, her parents' house, Sabrina sat curled on the couch, sobbing. Her silver gown was ruined, her makeup smeared, her nails chipped from wiping her face too hard. Her mother tried to comfort her, but Sabrina kept repeating the same sentence. "He said he loved me. He said he would leave her. He said she was weak." Her mother shook her head. "Sabrina, he lied to both of you." But Sabrina wasn't listening. She was drowning in her own humiliation. Every guest from the wedding was posting videos. Clips of her giggling about humiliating Emily. Clips of Mark mocking his wife. Clips of them planning a wedding behind someone's back. She wasn't the princess anymore. She was the villain of the story. And people online were not kind. She cried harder, knowing her dream wedding had become the biggest scandal her town had seen. Mark spent the night pacing through the empty house like a man haunted by ghosts. He checked his bank accounts. He checked his investments. He checked his savings. And then the realization hit him like a punch to the stomach. Half of it gone. Frozen. Legally locked. All because he underestimated the woman he married. He sat on the floor with his head in his hands, repeating the same words over and over. How did she do this to me? But deep inside, he knew the truth. Emily didn't do anything to him. He did it to himself. He lit the fuse. He built the bomb. He walked toward the explosion. Emily just handed him the match. That night, Emily finally let herself rest. She lay on the bed, closed her eyes, and allowed her body to relax for the first time in months. No lies. No secrets. No acting. No traps. Just silence. And in that silence, she realized something powerful. Her revenge wasn't the explosion at the wedding. Her real revenge was the quiet life afterward. A life without fear. A life without betrayal. A life without the man who almost destroyed her. The world might see her as the hero of a dramatic story. But Emily didn't care about any of that. She was finally free. And that was enough. The morning after the ruined wedding, the city felt strangely quiet. It was the kind of quiet that comes after a storm. The kind where the air is washed clean, where the world feels new, where everything broken is finally still. Emily woke early in her small apartment. Sunlight slipped gently through the white curtains, painting soft gold across the room. She sat up slowly, stretched her hands, and realized something she had not felt in a very long time. Her chest didn't hurt. Her mind wasn't heavy. Her heart wasn't afraid. She was free. Not just legally, emotionally, psychologically, completely. She made herself a cup of tea and stepped onto the small balcony overlooking the quiet street. People walked past, laughing, hurrying, living their ordinary lives, while Emily watched them with a lightness she had forgotten she could feel. She didn't miss the big house. She didn't miss the old routines. She didn't miss the man who treated her like a placeholder in his story. Her life was her own now. Around noon, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Please meet me. I need to talk. Mark." Emily stared at the message for several seconds. She didn't feel fear. She didn't feel hope. She didn't feel anything except mild curiosity. She replied with one word. "Where?" He sent a location, a public park, the one with stone benches and tall oak trees. Emily arrived 20 minutes later. Mark was already there, sitting alone on a bench. He looked different. Defeated. Older. Broken. His suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed, his face pale with exhaustion. When he saw Emily walking toward him, he stood up too quickly, as if trying to find dignity he no longer had. "Emily," he breathed, voice shaking. She nodded politely. "Mark." He swallowed hard. I never expected you to do something like that." Her expression stayed neutral. "I know." He ran a hand through his messy hair. "You ruined my wedding." Emily raised an eyebrow slightly. "You ruined your marriage." He blinked, stunned by the simplicity of her reply. "I didn't think you had it in you," he whispered. Emily looked at him with a calm that shook him more than anger ever could. "You never really knew me, Mark." He looked down, embarrassed. "You took everything," he said quietly. "No," she replied. "I took what belonged to me. You tried to take everything from me first." He opened his mouth to protest, but Emily raised a hand. "It's done, Mark. There's nothing left to explain." A long, painful silence settled between them. Finally, he asked the question she knew would come. "Did you ever love me?" Emily exhaled softly. "Yes, I did. Fully. Honestly." He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. But her next words crushed it. "And that was my mistake." Mark's lips parted, but no words came out. Emily continued, her voice gentle but firm. "You loved the attention. You loved being admired. You loved being in control. But you never loved me." Mark stepped back, as if her words hit him physically. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Emily nodded. "I know. But sorry can't rebuild what you burned." He stared at her, searching for some sign of softness, some doorway back into her life. But Emily's eyes were clear, calm, steady, closed. "You planned a future without me," she said. "I simply stepped out of your way." Her voice didn't shake once. Mark felt his throat tighten. "You're really not coming back?" Emily gave him a sad, peaceful smile. "No, Mark. I already left." And with that, she turned to go. "Emily," he called out. She paused. He stepped closer but kept his distance. "Do you hate me?" She shook her head. "I don't hate you. I simply don't care anymore." Those words hit harder than any insult. Hate means someone still matters. But indifference is the real ending. With nothing left to say, Emily walked away. Her steps were slow but confident. She didn't look back even once. Later that evening, Emily returned to her apartment. She felt lighter, like a heavy chain around her had finally dissolved. She made dinner for one. Quiet, simple, peaceful. No lies. No pretending. Just her. She sat at the small table and allowed herself a rare smile. Her phone buzzed again. Messages from friends, from strangers online praising her strength, from people who had seen the viral video. She ignored them all. Because her strength wasn't for the world to admire. It was for herself. She walked to the mirror and studied her reflection. Not the wife who used to stand behind Mark, not the woman who lived in the shadow of betrayal, but someone new. Someone whole. Someone unbreakable. She whispered to her reflection. I survived. And she had. Not just the betrayal. Not just the heartbreak. But the version of herself who thought she needed someone like Mark to be complete. Now she knew the truth. She was enough all along. And tomorrow she would wake to a life clean of lies. A life she built. A life she controlled. A life that didn't belong to anyone but her. Before going to bed, Emily opened her window to let the cool night breeze in. It carried no memories. No regrets. No shadows of the past. Just fresh, quiet air. She whispered one last time into the night. Goodbye, Mark. Not in anger. Not in sorrow. Not as a victim. But as a woman finally free. She closed the window gently. Turned off the lights. And stepped into her new beginning. Leaving behind the man whose ending she had already written. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the story, please hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon. Comment below for more stories like this. Your support means the world to us.